pleasure to be here today. I'm joined by Mary Elise Cox, who handles all of our international operations, and Yolanda DeLong with our partner who handles all of sub-Saharan Africa for us. It's my first time in Kenya, and we just arrived last evening, and so we certainly are pleased and honored to be here as a part of the Emobility Summit. And we do have plans to see some of your beautiful country over the next few days and also to visit one of your geothermal facilities. So I'm very encouraged by what we've been hearing today. I know it's the first Emobility Summit, but we're hearing already a lot of consistent messages, what's being done, what needs to be done. And so I think the track record of success of energy professionals here in Kenya, I think you're well poised to take on the next challenge, which will be e-mobility. I can't miss the opportunity to say a little bit about the Association of Energy Engineers. We're a nonprofit professional membership society. We have more than 18,000 members in more than 100 countries around the world. We were founded in 1977 by Al Tuman, and since that time we've really grown from just a concept to a global voice for energy professionals around the world. When AEE started and was founded, there was no energy management profession, there were no energy manager credentials, and so we've really built that globally over the past 40 plus years. We offer training and certification programs in more than 10 languages around the world. Who in the room holds an AEE credential, a CEM or a CMVP or a CEA? Oh, pretty good, maybe a quarter of the room, and I guess the rest of you, the answer is not yet. I'm a certified energy manager. So our credentials hold a very high level of competence and qualifications, so they're recognized and they're transferable around the world. They're recognized by countries around the world, by cities, states, organizations, and so they do recognize a very high level of competence. One of our strategic objectives at AEE that our board of directors confirmed last year was we need to address the urgent global environmental and energy needs with certified and qualified professionals. So whether we're talking about climate change, energy poverty, energy efficiency, e-mobility, we really need the qualified and competent professionals like yourselves here who are going to be poised and who will be able to tackle these solutions that we have. So we say we at AEE, we are local, we are global, we are AEE. So I'm from our international headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia in the US, and we have over 100 partners all around the world, and our local partner and chapter here in Kenya is AEPEA, and so they're our local organization, but they're part of the overall AEE family. And so, as I said, we are one global family with a common mission of what what our goals and plans are. I love this picture. It was taken in 1972 with the Apollo 17 mission. One of really the first images taken from space of our planet in color. And I think it shows that there's one planet. We need to take care of it. We need to leave it good for future generations. And it also shows, there's no boundaries or divisions anyway on here. And so we all need to work together as one people to take care of our planet and leave it in better shape than when we found it. When we look at energy and some global challenges and opportunities, if you will, we see really two main things when we look at the global energy picture. The first, climate change gets lots of press. According to IPCC, if we continue on a business as usual case, by 2100, we will have a 4.5 degree Fahrenheit increase in our global temperature, which will have catastrophic effects on our planet. So the goal and the target is 1.5 degree increase by 2100, and we certainly are committed and signed up to that. And I think as Engineer Simon mentioned earlier, energy efficiency can account for essentially 50% of meeting those carbon reduction goals. And so you engineers in the room, we are making a difference, we can make a difference and play a significant part in meeting that 1.5 degree temperature increase. When we look at our carbon emissions, in 2019, it was the first year in many years where carbon emissions had flatlined. So that's good news, although we need to have them decreasing. It's good news that they it's good news that there was a flat line there. You know, I mentioned energy poverty, and I know this is an e-mobility conference, but I just want to take the opportunity. You know, there's over 1 billion people in the world without access to energy, and almost half of those in Africa. And I want to really commend, Kenya on what you've done. Looks like 13 million people without energy here. And I think over the past 5 years, from 2013 to 2018, the rate of access went from approximately 25% to 75%, which is phenomenal, providing access to approximately 25 million people here. So I think if you can take on that, the energy poverty within your country, and deliver and continue to have success there, I think e-mobility is just something ahead that you'll also be able to take on this challenge and succeed. So really, why EVs? And we've heard a lot of good speakers, and I'm hearing, common messaging as we talk about this, but I mean, there's a number of things. Energy efficiency, I mean, EVs are 3 to 4 times more energy efficient than conventional internal combustion engines. Energy security, I mean, I think we heard it from the Principal Secretary, is that we can be importing oil and fossil fuels. There's money involved, there's security issues involved, versus using the green energy that you have here and that is plentiful to provide power for an EV force. There's air pollution. Certainly with all the diesel, all the gasoline, you have a lot of air pollution. You have zero emissions from EVs, and also then that has also ongoing health benefits down the road. Greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, with no emissions coming out of no pollution, we're going to have a significant impact, because transportation is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. And then noise reduction. Gosh, EVs are very, very silent. We have lots of EVs in the U.S. I actually drive an EV, and many times you'll be driving, and the people in front of you, gosh, why don't they move out of the road? It's because they can't hear you. So even noise pollution and increase there is very good. And then industrial development. I mean, obviously, whether you're doing final assembly of EVs, you're building batteries and infrastructure. So there's also really a complete range of reasons to go with e-mobility and EVs. And these are just some of the ones that are highlighted. And I think you've heard some of those earlier. You'll probably hear more details as we go forward. So I think when we look at the path forward, some of the things, how do we get there? And I think you've heard some of these. Obviously, regulations, whether they're mandates from the government, whether there's tax incentives, whether there's changes in fuel economy standards for the existing internal combustion engine fleets that you have. Incentives, whether the tax incentives or direct incentives for purchase of vehicles. Targets, vehicles, a percentage. There's many cities and countries around the world which has target percentages of EVs that they're moving toward. Industrial policies, once again, on batteries. Regulations. Gosh, when we talk about the charging network, I can tell you firsthand, it's like these computer issues we're having, and an Android phone versus an iPhone. There's compatibility issues, and there's a wide array of EV charging standards, and so I have a bag of adapters for the different chargers if I have to go and need to get some charging. So with incentives for target number of chargers, you got to have chargers at your home or at your office if you're going to have EVs. So these are just some of the things to consider and that we need to have action on if we're going to be successful with implementing e-mobility here within Kenya. And you'll just see a few examples of a few countries, the EU, Canada, China, India, Japan, and even the US, where all of these things are part of an ongoing plan to have, EVs and e-mobility and fight greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. A lot of good press, and here's some pretty cities that are 100%, EVs. We have Ghent, Belgium, Dubrovnik, Croatia, and Hydra Island in Greece. These are great. These are more touristy, smaller facilities, great for PR, so they're all EVs. But when we look further, the world is moving in this direction. If we look at Norway, it's a small country in Scandinavia, but they have totally banned gasoline and diesel engines by 2025. That's less than 5 years from now, and that's significant. They're one of the earlier ones. China, 1/5 of all car sales by 2025 will be EVs. That's a lot of EVs. India, France, we have some colleagues here from France, diesel and gasoline cars banned by 2040. Significant, very, very good. So we're seeing massive movement from the market and from regulators, from countries, governments, helping promote, from the top down, EVs and getting rid and moving away from internal combustion engines. Those were a few highlighted. Here's just a list of some countries. You see Norway there by 2025, a total ban on internal combustion engines. A number of countries there by 2030, okay? So we're seeing a global movement away from internal combustion engines through government mandates and programs. In addition to a few of these countries listed here, there's a number of countries that are committed to 30% EVs by the year 2030. Canada, China, Finland, India, Japan, Mexico, the UK. So lots of countries are doing this. Cities, there's a wide range of cities from Paris, London, Los Angeles, Copenhagen, Mexico City, Tokyo, Rome, and over 20 other cities that have committed to purchase only zero-emission buses beginning in 2025. Major thing, and you'll see that really the buses are one of the major areas gaining traction. And then these cities also have committed to having an all-electric fleet by early in the 2030s, whether those are battery electric or even fuel cell hydrogen buses. So we're seeing a massive movement in government policies and programs towards getting rid of internal combustion engines. So if we're having all of this demand and all of these mandates, will there be EVs available in the world to meet these needs? And I say to you, yes, there will be. I don't know if you can read this, but basically all the manufacturers are moving heavily towards high productions of EVs, and that's just going to help e-mobility adoption throughout any areas that are not currently heavily utilizing. Ford has 40 new EV models by 2022. That's 2 years. They're going to have 40 new EV models. Mercedes-Benz, 25% of their sales will be EVs by the year 2025. General Motors, 20 new EV models by 2023. And Infiniti, the luxury brand of Nissan, will have all of their models will be electric next year. So this is just astonishing that, if we're seeing in many parts of the world just a proliferation of availability and everything in the EV world. So whether it's a small subcontract or a more luxurious car, we're seeing the manufacturers definitely on board with where the market is headed. Now, if we look at a few of the statistics, I won't go into all of these details, but China last year, more than 1 million electric vehicles sold, okay? So I think we're seeing some momentum, right? If China is doing that, that number is going to only increase. In Norway, 46% of their automobile sales are EVs currently. So there's lots of momentum around the world for, electric vehicles. When we look forward at the global EV sales, currently over 2 million EVs were sold in 2018. That's up from just a few thousand in 2010. So we're seeing drastically a huge increase. There's no sign of this slowing down. So we expect that the annual passenger EV sales to rise to 10 million from 2 million, 10 million by 2025, 28 million by 2030, and by the year 2040, we expect 56 million EVs will be sold globally within 20 years. Huge numbers and a lot of traction. So by 2040, we expect 57% of all passenger vehicles will be EVs, and over 30% of the global passenger fleet will also be electric. There's certainly, we're expecting a price parity between EVs and internal combustion engines by the mid-2020s. Certainly, currently, there's a premium on price with EVs. I think our friend from Tesla would probably, confirm that. But so we expect price parity by the mid-2020s, although there is definitely some variations in geographies and certain segments. But despite this growth, there's over 1 billion vehicles on the road, and the EVs are still less than 0.5% of the global vehicle fleet. So the total passenger vehicle fleet will continue to rise to 1.6 billion by the year 2040. So still people are going to be having cars. By 2040, we expect 500 million EVs on the road and over 40 million commercial EVs. And we expect the internal combustion passenger fleet will continue to grow for 10 years until 2030, and then we expect to see global decline. I mentioned if you look at the share of global EV, buses, commercial buses in cities, driven by many of these cities and their programs. Currently, we expect by 2040, almost 70% of commercial buses will be EVs, followed by light commercial, passenger cars, medium and heavy commercial. Those are going to be harder to electrify, and there's certainly some challenges there. Maybe natural gas or even hydrogen fuel cells may be a role, but we're going to continue to see these increases in EV sales. And with our EVs, we're going to need charging stations, right? If you look in 2012, 77,000 charging stations around the world. Currently, there's 632,000, not nearly enough. Almost half of that in China with their, adding 1 million EVs annually. So we already have 630, public charging stations. They're going to be a totally different model than your gasoline stations where you're driving and you stop. They need to be at where you live so you can charge overnight when you have excess energy, right? This good excess clean energy. Or they need to be at your office so you can charge during the day, which may add additional load during the day. So placement of where these are is going to be critical. And so none of these, make EVs fully competitive with the internal combustion engines, but without access to these home and workplace charging stations, those are some of the things we're going to need to promote further adoption of EVs around the world. So electricity consumption, here we go. So electricity demand for all types of EVs is going to climb from 74 terawatt hours this year to 2,333 terawatt hours in 2040. So you see dramatic increase in the electricity required to charge our EVs. So while this may sound like a very high number, the EVs currently only add, So currently that only adds 6.8% to the total global energy consumption. And as countries continue to add EVs, we expect that the high may be up to maybe 14%. So I think we have, especially in Kenya, you have the extra capacity, so the available electricity and the challenge on the demand is not an issue here. So I think there's a lot of momentum, a lot of movement, a lot of good ideas. I think you know what needs to be done in order to reach a massive movement here in Kenya with e-mobility. I just wanted to bring one additional thing up is there's always a lot of major disruptions in the global economy and market. I remember when I had a cell phone that was a big box which is mounted on my car, and now everybody has 1, 2 cell phones. Most people in the world seem to have cell phones. There's a gentleman, he's a professor, he's an entrepreneur at the Silicon Valley in California. He's also a professor at Stanford, so he's a pretty sharp guy. His name is Tony Seba. And so Tony Seba is predicting the end of the ICE, the internal combustion engine age, by 2030, okay? Well, so, he's out there, but he's got a lot of good ideas and a lot of good science and data behind it. He's predicting by 2030, 95% of all passenger vehicle miles driven will be by fully autonomous electric vehicles. He's predicting that there will be a reduction in the fleet of automobiles around the world by 80%. So essentially he's saying, instead of us owning vehicles, driving them around, there will be fleets of autonomous EVs. You want to go somewhere, you call it on your app, it picks you up, and it goes and picks the next person up. So currently, we all probably have cars parked out here, which are being utilized a small percentage of the time, taking up valuable real estate. So his theory and what he's promoting and saying we'll have much smaller number of cars. We will not own cars. We will have much more real estate because we won't be parking them all, and that 95% will be autonomous self-driving cars. So that's just one other theory that's out there from someone who's very well respected. If you have a chance, I would urge you to listen to his speech. It's very good. The final thing I'd like to say is, we saw the picture of the Earth from space. We're all one people working to leave the planet in a better place than where we started. And so this is something I think is very telling, is former President Barack Obama from the United States said, "We are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it." So our challenge to you is, let's fight climate change, let's implement e-mobility. You've got clean energy already, and thank you. It's been an honor to be here, and please enjoy the event today.